All right, guys. Put this in the bag. Can everyone hear me well on here? Ooh, I gotta wait for people to come in. Can anybody hear me? Anybody in the chat? Yeah, it's taking a minute. Can anybody hear me? Can anybody see me? All right, so why don't you guys sit here maybe? All right, there we go. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me on my audio? Can you guys hear me? Yes. All right, yeah, they're saying yes. All right. You know, I'm thinking, all right, guys, let me set this up here. All right, we're live. We are live now. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go start setting up.
All right, let's do it.
Alrighty. So, you guys just start setting up and just go at it? Or should I wait till 2?
I'll go ahead and get the presentation pulled up.
Get the presentation pulled up? Alrighty, sounds good. Awesome. Hello, hello.
I won't throw it up on you until you get everything pulled up.
Yeah, let me get it. Is there any power that comes through this as well or no? Uh-oh. Alright, there we go. Okay, so is there a charger nearby? Because just sometimes my computer gets low on battery, do you know?
There's not one run up here.
Okay. I'm at full battery, just like sometimes it's a little bit rough, but we'll see. Oh, you know what? I have a, hold on. This is like a battery pack.
No way, they make those for the computers?
Well, we'll see.
Dude, that's sweet.
We will see. I just want to plug it in real quick and see if it actually.
Yeah.
All right, so it shows plugged in.
Sweet.
Okay.
So, yeah, throw it up in slideshow.
Let me get this into slideshow.
All right, I'll put that up here in just a minute.
All right.
I'll give this to you.
Sure.
All you gotta do is hit this, it'll go live, and then you can start whenever. You can come back, you can do it now.
All right, just say go down and, give me the thumbs up and we'll get going. Hello? I don't know. You press it, right? Hello? Oh, there we go. What is going on, folks? How we doing today? We enjoying Aquashella? Yeah? This is actually my very first Aquashella. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Luke. I'm the owner and creator of Luke's Goldies. And if you guys follow my channel on TikTok or YouTube, you can see I got some of my goldfish on there. It shows some very, very great angled pictures for our title slide here. So in this presentation, I'm going to cover the basics of goldfish keeping for slim-bodied and for like fat, fancy-bodied goldfish, because that's what I specialize in. But before I get into that, I am also just going to quickly go over a little personal information. So yeah, as I said, my name's Luke. I love goldfish. I breed goldfish. I've been in the hobby since 2017. And a lot of people ask me, like, what did you study in college? What did you study? Because you're so big into fish. And the funny thing is, I actually studied chemical engineering in college. So I did that, I got my degree, and then I went straight into goldfish and content creation full time. And you can see there, that's actually me and my father. He's in the crowd today, he's back over there. He told me ever since I could remember, he said, Luke, you can do anything you want in life after you get your chemical engineering degree. So I went and I got my degree, and now I'm breeding goldfish and I'm making content about it. So let's get into goldfish. So can anyone in the audience tell me what species of fish this is? Does anyone know? You're right over there. More specifically, what kind of carp is that? It's not a trick question. It's not a trick question. It's a goldfish. That's right. That's right. All right, what about this one? What about this one? This one looks quite a bit different too. You're right over there. I met you earlier. That's true, a red cap Oranda goldfish. Nice work. All right, one last one. This one's a little bit tricky. A little different angle here for you. So it's kind of hard to tell from this angle, but this also is indeed a goldfish. So the point I'm getting at here is that goldfish come in all shapes and sizes. In fact, every single fish you see here on this screen is a goldfish. And if you wanted to, you actually could breed any of these goldfish with each other. A lot of people ask, like, could you breed a fancy-bodied goldfish with a slim-bodied goldfish? And yeah, they're all the same species. In fact, that goldfish on the lower right there is a hybrid between two of the species on here. And the way goldfish genetics works is so wacky, you wouldn't expect it, but that one is actually, that one is actually a cross between the black moor goldfish, who is on the lower middle with those big black eyes, and then the Ranchu goldfish on the upper middle. So, you never know what you're going to get when you start crossing, but one of the reasons why I love goldfish is just there's such a huge variety. There's just such a massive variety of them. And this is just of what I just went in my basement and took pictures of. But, in reality, there's just a ton of different kinds of goldfish out there. There's more than I even know, but for the purposes of this presentation, I'm really just going to cover the two main, categories that you have to worry about, and that's the slim-bodied goldfish and your fat-bodied goldfish, because those are the two main distinctions that change the way you need to care for a goldfish. So to begin, I'm going to go over tank size. Now, for your fat-bodied goldfish, they actually generally do not get quite as large as your slim-bodied goldfish, so you don't need as large of a tank. Now, some people will tell you, like, oh, the rule of thumb, I don't like that word, but they say the rule of thumb for fancy goldfish is 20 gallons for one, and then, 10 additional gallons for every fish after that. But the reason I don't agree with having any rules of thumb is because of this right here. So, on the left there, that's little soldier boy. That's my little soldier boy fish. He's tiny, but he's stunted in growth. All right, he's a fat-bodied goldfish, but he's stunted in growth. I actually found him in my aged water tubs. I have water holding tubs. I just found him randomly in that tub. So forever, for the rest of his life, he's never going to get big. And a lot of pet store goldfish are like that. A lot of pet store goldfish you'll get, they're stunted, and I wouldn't have the same stocking recommendation of a stunted smaller goldfish than I would of Carrot 1.0, who's on the right. Now, Carrot 1.0, he literally takes up my entire hand. He's a goldfish that I bred, that I was aware of, and I took very good care of him, and now he's huge, and he's going to grow very large. So, if you go back to tank size, you could, easily in a 75-gallon keep 15 little soldier boys. But when it comes to Carrot 1.0s, I would say, maybe two or three. So you really have to use your judgment when it comes to stocking for goldfish, because there's stunted goldfish, there's your common goldfish, which I would really never go below 55 gallons because the common goldfish get very large. But for fancies, I'd say the absolute minimum is 20 gallons. But the one rule of thumb that you can always use is that bigger is better. If you can get a larger, bigger tank, absolutely get that bigger tank. But it's going to have to be larger for your commons generally than your fat-bodied. All right, now let's go into filtration. There are a lot of great options for filtration out there. The rule of thumb I use for filtration is just more. Put more filters on there. My absolute favorite form of filtration are sponge filters because the way they work is very simple. This is actually what I use in my entire fish basement. I got a whole basement full of these things, and I have a central air pump in the back of the room that pressurizes a PVC tubing that goes all throughout the room, and then from that central pipe, I just tap in these little air nozzles. You can see that on the top picture there, and those power all the sponge filters. And when air is pumped to the base of a sponge filter, it'll rise up, and when it rises up, it displaces the water that's inside the filter, and it'll draw more water in. It'll pull more water in. So by doing that, it filters the water. It works super simple. They're very cheap. And all you got to do to clean it is just take the filter out, squeeze it in some water, put it back. So for simplicity with how many tanks I have, I love sponge filters. All right, plants and decor. The way I view this for goldfish is if you are successful in keeping plants, absolutely go for it. Absolutely do it. You can see that's actually a 300-gallon above ground pond I have in my basement where I got a lily in there, and it was actually able to establish itself and thrive before the fish, gnaw it to death. However, in the tank on the right, you can see there's some algae and growth and stuff over there, but that used to be a beautifully planted tank. I had a ton of plants in there. Gave it a couple months with the goldfish, they mowed like 90% of it away. So if you can grow plants and your fish don't destroy them, do it. It's going to benefit your water quality. It's great stimulation. But in terms of decor, for fancy goldfish, I don't love most plastic decor or rock decor just because they're so clumsy, they're so sensitive. They do tend to hurt themselves quite easily on it. So that's the way I view it. All right, now to heat or not to heat. This is a very big debated, topic in the goldfish community because most people think of goldfish, they think, oh, they're cold water fish. And most people will say, well, if it's a cold water fish, that means it's got to live in cold water. But that's not really true. These, goldfish, they can tolerate cold water and they can do fine underneath cold water, but that doesn't mean that they can't live in warmer waters. And for your common goldfish, they'll be fine in your 65 degree, 68 degree temperatures. But I found that for fancy goldfish, if you keep them in the higher 70s to lower 80 degree temperatures, they're going to do a lot better. And the main reason I found that is because the higher the temperature, these are cold-blooded animals, the higher the metabolism, the faster they poop. And you want them to poop faster. You don't want food to sit in their gut for too long, because when food sits in your colon, the bacteria builds and then they're farting. And they're farting and there's lots of gas, and that gas will actually make its way into their swim bladder, and you'll see your goldfish belly up. So I found that for fancy goldfish, they are swim bladder disorder prone. If you can heat the tank to the high 70s, low 80s, they end up doing a lot better. There's less gas buildup, and they're less prone to those problems. All right, in terms of lighting, if you have plants on your tank, you're going to need lights. If you don't have plants on your tank and you're in a well-lit area, they aren't necessary. But I will say they do make the tank look a lot better. So that's, that's completely up to you. All right, now goldfish diet. So if I was a smart businessman, I would say, go to lukesgoldies.com, buy Goldie Bites, and that's the only thing you feed to your fish, all right? That's the only thing you should do. But no, the reality is processed foods, whatever pellets you feed them, that should honestly make up a minority of the diet that you feed to your goldfish. If you want them to have good gut health, that should make up a minority of the diet, and you should look for feeding them frozen bloodworms or frozen mysis shrimp and brine shrimp, especially lots of vegetable matter. If you guys have seen my pea videos, I'm constantly feeding these guys peas because, again, peas help them poop. All right, these guys tend to have some bowel problems. As long as you can give them stuff that's going to help them poop, help them clear their guts, that's going to help them a lot. So vegetable matter, algae, peas, all that stuff is going to be absolutely great diet-wise. All right, and in terms of tank maintenance, if you look down there to the bottom right, you'll see more poop. I'm telling you guys, that's the main thing you got to know about goldfish is they are huge waste producers. Everything they eat, they will clear through their system. And for that reason, I like to do very large water changes, at least on a weekly basis. I will do 90% water changes. And I found for a goldfish, that's such a high waste producing fish, if you're going to replicate, the similar water quality that they have in the wild, they can eat and poop all they want in the wild, and it's not going to, build up that ammonia level. You have to compensate for that in an artificial tank system. So I do recommend doing weekly, very large volume water changes. Okay, so that's your general information for those that want to start keeping goldfish. But what if you want more goldfish? Okay, a lot of people get into the fish hobby, and very quickly they learn they love this thing. They learn they love this hobby, and they want to have more. So you can buy more fish, or you can start breeding them, and that's what I decided to do. So I started breeding them, and the very first step in breeding goldfish is getting good-looking parents, all right? The same thing applies to humans. You ever see a couple and they look very beautiful, you think, oh, they're gonna have some nice-looking kids. It's the same thing for goldfish. You see two goldfish and they got that perfectly smooth back. I'm talking about ranchus, because I'm a ranchu breeder. They got a nice smooth back, they got a 45-degree angled tail, they got a nice full wen. That's gonna make for a good breeder ranchu. Some other details that you wanna look for is on the top view, if the back and spine is perfectly straight, if the tail connection, where the body connects to the tail, that's called a peduncle. If that is nice and thick, it's a nice thick connection, that's a good sign. And if you look behind them, they have these anal fins. It's very often that goldfish will have a joined anal fin. You want to see a goldfish that has two separate, even symmetrical anal fins. So you just want symmetry, smoothness, and especially good swimming. So if you see all those qualities, you got yourself some good parents. So how do you get those parents to breed? So unlike us, there's only one time that goldfish like to breed, and that's in the spring and in the summer. And before that comes winter. So if you're in an artificial environment in your home and you want to breed your goldfish, you got to simulate winter. So getting the tank temperature to go down to winter temperatures can be hard, but what you can do is, one, you can remove the heater, but when you remove the heater, you also have to feed them a lot less. So drop the heating, drop the feeding severely, and drop the lighting as well. So basically every single thing that would happen in a normal natural winter, lower light, lower heat, lower food, lower diversity of food sources, that's gonna trick your fish into thinking, oh man, it's winter, all right, I'll chill. And I leave it like that for a minimum of a month. And then after a month, you start doing the opposite. You start getting them in the mood. You slowly start increasing the duration of light. You feed them lots of bloodworms, lots of brine shrimp. You get the heater back in the tank and you slowly raise to 80 degrees Fahrenheit potentially. And if you feed them enough and the females get very well fed, one morning you're gonna wake up and you're gonna see that your male goldfish are shoving their face right in the bottoms of the females, chasing them all around. And that's how you know it's go time. So I know this is kind of maybe a little graphic, a little gross, but again, similarly to humans, a way a human is made is you got male sperm and you got a female egg. And the mixing occurs, within the animal or within the human. But for goldfish, it all happens on the outside. So once I see that two goldfish, the optimal ones to breed, are ready to start spawning, I'll actually take them and you just mildly squeeze on the sides of the fish, and the sperm will come out, and I'll do the sperm first, and then the eggs will come out, and upon contact with the water, they'll immediately start getting fertilized. So then they'll stick onto a bucket. I'll just get a bucket and do this in the bucket, and then we got eggs. So if you look very carefully, it's kind of hard to see on this screen, but on the right picture there are some clearer eggs, and then there are some white dots. So those white eggs are either A, eggs that never got any sperm, never got fertilized, or B, are eggs that did get fertilized, but fungus overtook them. Fungus is a very common problem with fish eggs, which is why I use methylene blue in every fish batch. It's an antifungal agent, and I'll put that in there every time I change the egg water. And I change the egg water in the bucket literally 3 to 4 times a day to keep those eggs nice and healthy. You gotta constantly have fresh water on the eggs. And then after 2 days, we'll have hatching. So if you see carefully there, this is a goldfish directly after hatching. They have that little yolk sac, that little bulb in the middle of their body, and then these little tails sticking off and 2 eyes. And they'll stay either on the ground or sucked onto the walls of the tank for a good 2 days before they actually begin free swimming. So you'll see them right there. They're actually swimming in my hand. That's probably a couple-day-old goldfish, like 3 to 4 day old goldfish. You'll see those little tiny hairline things swimming in my hand, and that's a very zoomed up picture on the right. So when the goldfish are this tiny, there's only one thing that I feed them, and that's freshly hatched brine shrimp. And the reason why brine shrimp are so great to feed your goldfish is, one, very high protein. You want to supply them with as much protein as you possibly can. And two, the movement, the mild movements those shrimp make in the water actually catch the eye of the goldfish. The goldfish will see that, and I've noticed that they're far more likely to go and hunt and eat those small, freshly hatched brine shrimp when they see them moving versus a frozen one. Now I'll feed both, but I try my best to feed exclusively like alive, freshly hatched brine shrimp in the first couple weeks of life. Okay, and now this is the dark side of goldfish breeding and feeding in general. So you're probably thinking, separating the fish from the snap and turtle food, and the reality of goldfish is there's a reason why they have so many babies. There's a reason why there are thousands upon thousands of babies, and that's because they're not all meant to make it. A large portion of them will have very crooked spines. Some of them will not even develop a swim bladder correctly, and you'll notice some of them never get off the bottom of the ground. Their swim bladder never forms, and they're just stuck on the bottom of the ground. Some of them will have missing fins. Some of them will have misformed mouths, and the mouths cannot even properly eat food. So you will have to cull through a very large majority of the fish. And with the culls, you can either feed them to a predator and use them as feeder fish. That's my snapping turtle, Bowser, over there on the bottom right. Or you can euthanize them with clove oil. So I'll do either one. But that's the reality of goldfish breeding. In the wild, fish have lots of eggs because not many are meant to survive. And that's true in captivity as well. A very large spawn of fish, you don't get that many in the end. So now after the culling is done and you have your baby goldfish fry, they're called fry, those little guys, and you're trying to grow them out, the main two things you have to do to successfully grow out a goldfish is feed them constantly and change the water out constantly. Even if your water parameters are good, they will release a pheromone that blocks the growth of them and themselves around. So you want to constantly change the water out, especially given how many are in a single tank, and then just provide endless protein. You never want to have them go hungry in the tank. And then the final step for me as a goldfish breeder is selling the fish. This is honestly one of my least favorite parts, not just because it's very tedious, but some of them I do get attached to. So some people ask me, do you get attached to the fish? How do you sell them? Some of them I get attached to, some of them I don't. But some of them I begin to, I'll notice one that has a different character, and I'll enjoy seeing him every day. He might be the first one to come up, but I can't, if I'm gonna have a business and I'm gonna produce goldfish and sell them and continue running things, I can't keep them all. So selling them, the way I sell them is I'll put them in a bag, I'll add 2 drops of that methylene blue agent that I was talking about that actually helps increase the oxygen uptake. I'll fill the bag with pure oxygen a majority of the way. I'll put them in an insulated box, and then I'll bring them to UPS and they'll ship them out. And yeah, I've used that method for a while now, and I've had very good success with it. All right, now I'm gonna go a little more personal. Now you know how to breed fish. Now you know how to keep fish, or goldfish. But how did I get into here? All right, how did I find myself here at Aquashella talking about goldfish? That's a question I ask myself sometimes. So it all started with my very first 3 goldfish. We got Calvin, we got Maurice, and we got Donald. Like many beginner goldfish keepers, I did not do it correctly when I first got these fish. I saw them at the pet store, I thought they were cute. They're only 33 cents. I was so mistaken. This hobby is so expensive sometimes. I'm like, they're only 33 cents, so I bought them. Quickly realized the little tank I had them in was way too tiny. I ended up upgrading to a 40-gallon tank, and when I did that, again, I made a mistake. I bought more fish, and 2 of those fish, you see those 2 fantails, I noticed one of them was chasing the other one. So this was before church. My parents are getting ready to go, and they're saying, Luke, we gotta go to church. And I said, hold on, wait a minute. I'm looking this up on YouTube. My fish are breeding. My fish are breeding. I want to see if I can get a spawn out of this. So I got a bucket, I got the fish, and I just watched the YouTube tutorial, like how to hand spawn fish, and I did it. And the very first time, I was successful. And that little grid you see over there was me trying to calculate exactly how many eggs I had in the bottom of my bucket. I had like 500 eggs or something. So after I did this, that's when I really got super deep into the hobby. I started researching all about goldfish keeping. I started looking up, all over the internet about goldfish. And I feel like my first breeding experience, that's what really, got me really into the hobby. But how did I get onto social media? So around the same time, I had an Instagram page all about photography. It had like a corny name, Life Through Luke. That's what I named it. And I'd post pictures of flowers, I'd post pictures of food. But pretty soon, I got so deep into the goldfish hobby, I just wanted to share it with everyone. I was only posting pictures of fish. So I ended up changing the name of the page. I changed it to Luke's Goldies, because that's just about all I was posting. And then come 2020, the pandemic hit, TikTok got popular. I started posting on TikTok, and within my first couple months of going crazy on videos, I hit like 100,000 followers. So I had been posting on Instagram for 2 years consistently, and I had only gained around 1,500, 2,000 followers. But I went on TikTok, I started posting videos, and then it started blowing up. So I said, wow, this is amazing. This is really amazing. So from that to today, we're now at 3.5 million on YouTube, 500,000 on Instagram, 5 million on TikTok, which still shocks me. So a combined following of about 9 million, which was, that's way more than I even imagined or even hoped for when I first started this. When I was first posting, I would see other accounts with like 1,000, 10,000 followers, 20,000, and I imagined like, wow, that'd be amazing. But I never expected it to grow to what it is today. And because it's grown so much, it's allowed me to fund the hobby even further and take the next step into growing it into a really, a real established business. So I posted all throughout college. And when I graduated college, I had just saved up all the money I made from social media, all the money I made from selling goldfish, and the opportunity arose. So I bought my first house. I bought my only house, and I bought this place, for one, to have a place to live in, but mainly for the fish. The main reason why I bought this house and property was for the fish. It had 4 acres. It had a lot of lawn space, and I decided, this is where I'm going to set up my home base. This is where I'm going to expand, and this is where I'm going to take, things to the next level. Because before this, I was working out of my parents' greenhouse. It was, 10 by 13 foot in my parents' backyard. So I decided I need my own place. I need to, take that next step. So as soon as I closed on the house, the next week I was there. You can see on the upper left, that was what the fish basement looked like, all right? It was unfinished, concrete floor, concrete wall, no ceiling. I tore down a closet right in the corner, and then I just got to work. I looked up videos, how do you drywall? I got 34 sheets of drywall from Home Depot, carried them down all the way into the basement myself. I started mudding and taping. I'm talking with my father and telling him, and I said, I think I'm gonna try to mud and tape by myself. And he said, oh, good luck, you're gonna hate it. And he was right. It was definitely not fun. It was a lot of hard work. And the funny thing is I got all the drywall in there, I did all the mudding, I did all the taping, I sanded all the drywall. And after that, I decided, you know what, I think I'm gonna hire the rest of this out. So after I did all the hard stuff, I hired out the painting and the vinyl click flooring. But I was burnt out. I was just working on that constantly. But now, today, that is what our fish basement is looking like. So we got all kinds of tanks, we got all kinds of tubs. I don't even know how many goldfish I have in there right now, but the place is just, packed with goldfish. I got guppies, I got a couple snapping turtles, slider turtles, and that's basically where my home base is now. So a lot bigger than what I used to have at my parents' home. So another thing about this property that drew me to it is that it was historically used as a fishery. And that was one of the really big selling points for me. I said, wow, this place, it has 4 acres, it's near my family. I had other family in New Hampshire. It's got a 1 acre pond on it, lots of water, it was used for fish. This is like meant to be. This place is meant for me. So I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to restore this fishery. I'm going to get it going again. We're going to make it a goldfish fishery. That was my hope. But then I tore it down, okay? So that was my hope going in, but then I started taking a closer look at the building. I started touching the brick with my hand, and it was crumbling. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to tear the fishery down. I'm going to keep the plumbing and the troughs, the concrete troughs that were in there they used to raise trout in, and I'm going to build a greenhouse over it. So the first step was tearing down the building, and I took all the wood. I made some massive bonfires. You guys can see some of those bonfires. I had the biggest fires. It was so fun. And then after I tore it all down, I put the rest in some dumpsters. I then, called up a local gravel and dirt company. And again, this is my first time doing anything like this. And I just said, like, hey, I need to fill up some land. Can I have some dirt? And they're like, all right, yeah. So gave them my credit card info, and next morning I wake up and there's just piles of dirt all over my front yard. So I go and I rent a skid steer and I start filling it in. And now this is where we're at now. So, I'm still in the process of this. We still got our concrete troughs, and I actually did a calculation. Just one of those 38-foot long troughs has more gallon space than my entire fish basement. Just one of those troughs. So I'm like, I gotta keep these. I gotta build more, and I'm actually gonna end up building a 50 by 60 foot greenhouse on that site that you see there. So that's the next big step. I'm in the process of working with a greenhouse company to purchase a nice, good-sized greenhouse for that. But I'm going to have to get some sonotubes. I'm going to have to anchor each one to a base plate. I'm going to have to just, pray to God that I don't mess up. But yeah, that's where we're at now. And I'm hoping that, potentially by next season, I have that goldfish greenhouse up and running, and we're breeding at full throttle again. And that's all for today's discussion. Are there any questions for anyone in the crowd? Oh, does someone have a question? I see a finger. Oh, you got a question right here?
So if fish get egg-bound, can it cause, if it's not treated immediately, to dropsy?
Yeah, so if a fish is egg-bound, it can cause dropsy. I actually had that in one of my fish named Viola, because if the fish gets egg-bound, the eggs are stuck in there. Eventually, they'll die and they'll rot, and some bacteria will use that as an opportunity to go wild. And at that point, you get inflammation, you get water retention, and yeah, it can cause dropsy. And that's actually I've actually found that sometimes female goldfish can be a little more problematic, especially the fancies, because if they do get egg bound and you don't express the eggs and they get stuck in there, yeah, it can cause dropsy. I've had that with a couple of my goldfish over the years. Right over there. Yeah. So how do you tell if a fish is stressed? There's a couple ways. The most simple way to tell if a fish is stressed is it will just bottom sit. It'll go down to the bottom of the tank. You'll notice that it opens and closes its mouth kind of rapidly sometimes, and its fins, which are typically out, you'll notice they go like this, and they put their fins to the side like this, and they'll remain still. So if you see that, that's a sign of stress. And if your fish is stressed, you can add 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons of salt into the water. You can throw in a couple extra oxygen stones and oxygenate up the water. You can turn the lights off, and then you can just say your prayers and hope that it's not going to die.
Besides the goldfish, what is your favorite fish?
So besides goldfish, my favorite fish, I do have guppies, but I will honestly say I think that koi fish are my next favorite fish. I don't have any koi fish, but I really, really want to. It's just that, the pond required to keep a koi fish is a lot larger than a goldfish. But eventually, I will.
With your videos, you talked about how you had a bunch of goldfish who had dropsy, and most of the time you cured it. So how did you do that?
Yeah. So, oh wow. Okay. So yeah, dropsy is one of the most common problems I found for fancy goldfish keepers. Over the couple, I'd say over the last 6 years or so, I've probably had at a minimum 12 cases of dropsy across. I've had hundreds of goldfish, maybe thousands at this point. I've had around 12, 13 cases of dropsy, but almost all of them did not make it, except for my last 2 fish. One of them had dropsy twice. Except for my last 2 fish, Mr. Clean, he got dropsy, and I was able to cure it by actually dosing aquarium salt into the water at 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons, dosing methylene blue. Again, I'm not a vet, so none of this is veterinary advice. Do not copy, yada, 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 whatever. But again, I would dose methylene blue at a teaspoon per 10 gallons, and then I would feed antibiotic medicated feed. So the one that I use has nitrofurazone, metronidazole, and what's the last one? Kanamycin in it. So I found when I feed an internal medicated feed and I put the methylene blue and salt in the water, the last 3 cases of dropsy I was actually able to bring from full pine coning, bring him back. And like Tubby Toby was the last one, and he's alive. He's alive and well, and the swelling is gone. So that's good. Yeah, over there. Oh, you just dropped something, I think.
I saw a video recently talking about, I think you were talking about overfeeding your fish.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that for someone who isn't breeding fish, who's just raising like an adult fish or
Like, oh, you mean overfeeding the bloodworms? Like the video like that? Yeah. So if you have an adult fish and you're not looking to grow them, very large, I would say honestly, you could just feed them once a day. I would not overfeed them. For the most part, it's actually I would say it's honestly okay to give your goldfish a lot of food if you change out the water constantly and you stay on top of your maintenance and your temperature is elevated. But if you want to just have an easy to maintain tank, you don't want to change the water out super often, you don't want a lot of filter maintenance. I've seen some people with larger adult goldfish feed them every other day. Just feeding them pellets every other day, and then just broccoli and peas and other vegetables at other times. Yeah, I can ask Josh over here. How much time do I got?
30 minutes.
I got 30 minutes left?
30, yeah, you got time.
Oh, shoot, okay.
Hi, Luke. I was wondering, how do you manage your time with, other things like, relationship, family, all those things going on?
Yeah, so how do I manage my time? Not well. I will say that it is definitely difficult because I'm doing a lot of things with my hands. Currently I'm trying to renovate my house. I'm trying to get this goldfish greenhouse project going. I got a fiance, I got a family. Yeah, there she is right over there. She's helping me out, she helps. And yeah, so I definitely got a lot going on, and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll just kind of think about everything I got to do, and I'll just do it until it's time to take a nap and sleep. I just like the way I see it is like there are people out there that are definitely working harder than me, so I can always work harder. I can always do more. It is hard for me sometimes to take a break and spend time and have fun, because I just always think about all the stuff that I got to do. I'm like, no, I got a lot of work I got to do. I got to finish renovating the bathroom. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I'm trying to learn how to take a break sometimes. But on my day to day, I just wake up and I work, and I thank God that I'm healthy. And yeah. Oy.
With that amount of volume of water that you got, your ventilation system being in your basement, your house,
Yeah.
what kind of ventilation system or dehumidifier system do you have?
Okay. So what kind of ventilation or dehumidifying system do I have in my basement? So I do have a lot of water down there. I got, a minimum of 2,000 gallons. I think even a lot more. I just added a 300 gallon and whatever. So I actually do not have any ventilation going to other parts of the house. And I actually like that. I keep the door shut, and all the humidity, for the most part, stays within that room. Now, some will make its way up through little crevices and stuff. But I have 2 industrial grade dehumidifiers in that basement. that for the most part keep the humidity around the 40 to 50% level. So I don't have any ventilation going to other parts, and I just keep the humidity, like, you know, with them running full blast, it stays around the 40 to 50% mark, which, you know, if I could get it lower, I would, but it's definitely not as bad as when I have them off. If I turn the dehumidifiers off, it goes to 80% humidity within like a couple hours. So yeah, definitely it runs up my electric bill for sure, which is one of the reasons why I want to get the greenhouse going, is so I can have that all be outside, not worry about humidity. But I have two, you know, industrial grade dehumidifiers. They drip into a dumping tub, and that dumping tub, once it fills up to a level, just pumps all the water out into my backyard. Yeah. Right here.
I watched a video that said once you get goldfish, you should not do them for 24 hours. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that might have been my video actually. I've said that a couple times before. Yeah, just because I found that when you first get a goldfish, it's going to be stressed. So like just as I was explaining earlier, when you first put a fish in the tank, it might, you know, chill out, go to the bottom, just kind of sit there. And when a goldfish is stressed, its digestive system's not going to be moving super efficiently. So for one, it might not even eat the pellets to begin with. And if that doesn't happen, you're just going to have rotting food on the bottom of your tank. And two, if it does eat the pellets, I feel like there's a higher chance for gas buildup and bloat. So I honestly would say for the first 2 days, you know, your fish will be fine. Just, you know, keep them, let them chill, and you don't really need to feed them. But what I might do sometimes is I'll do a stress test by just throwing a pellet in there and seeing how reactive the fish is. But in terms of regular feeding, I'll wait 2 days generally. Yeah.
What is like a sign that your goldfish can be dying?
A sign that your goldfish can be dying. So there's quite a few. The stress is one that I was talking about earlier. Also, a sign that your goldfish can have dropsy, which, you know, most of the time leads to death, is if you notice that their bodies have gotten a lot wider and their scales start sticking out. We call it pine coning. They start looking like a pine cone. If the scales start sticking out, that means there's a lot of fluid retention in the body, and the kidneys are not working for whatever reason. They're not working to what they should be, and that's like most of the time that's a death sentence, you know, for goldfish when you see that. But yeah, a stressed fish, a pine coning fish. That's really the most, you know, the biggest telltale signs. Also, if you have like a very apparent infection, like, you know, ick, and you don't treat it, you know, that will lead to death. But fortunately, a lot of the signs, you know, they are treatable to a degree. So if you see the beginnings of ick, like a white spot disease, if you see just the beginnings of dropsy, you can attempt to cure it. But yeah, I saw, oh, you had a hand, I'll go to you next.
What is your most favorite goldfish of all time and why?
Ooh, man, my favorite goldfish of all time and why. So, I'll honestly say my favorite goldfish of all time was Mr. Clean. So I recently lost Mr. Clean, and I didn't realize that he was my favorite goldfish of all time until after I lost him, and it definitely saddened me more than any other goldfish I've sold or any other goldfish I lost, just because he would have like the happiest attitude. You know, one of the reasons why I love goldfish is because they're like these little excited puppy dogs in water. You know, they come up to you, they interact with you, and nobody had that kind of character like Mr. Clean. He was just, you know, an absolute happy-go-lucky. He just, you know, comes up to you, you have a little thing of bloodworms in your hand, you'll nip it right out of your hand. He was the sweetest fish. I bred him, I had a lot of his children, so he was like a very sentimental fish to me, just the best character fish. So yeah, you know, I'll be honest, I have never cried when I lost a fish, except for that one. I did shed tears. I was not happy about that one. Oh yeah, you had a question over there. Next to me. Yeah, so he's asking, like, should you keep goldfish with other goldfish? And I think, you know, optimally, if you can keep at least 2 goldfish together, that's going to be really good. I think the best stimulation for a goldfish, if you're worried about stimulation, more than, you know, decor, more than plants, is a friend. They are social fish. If you see a lot of goldfish in a tank, you'll notice they oftentimes like to go to and swim next to each other. So they're definitely a social fish. I would say if your tank is large enough, absolutely, at least get a second fish. They'll appreciate it. You know, I got to get them real quick.
So I've never heard of this, but are there other fish that you can keep with goldfish, or do goldfish generally only want to be with their own species?
So this is actually something that I am not super well informed on because I rarely reach outside my hobby of goldfish. I have heard of people keeping dojo loaches pretty well with goldfish. They don't seem to bother each other. They don't seem to interact with each other. But for the most part, the only fish that I've ever kept are goldfish and a couple guppies. And those definitely don't mix well. The goldfish will eat the guppies. So, so that's actually something I'm not very well informed on. I've just heard from other goldfish keepers that dojo loaches, those little like long-bodied thing, but I heard they recently were like outlawed or something. Is that true? Dojo loaches were outlawed? I don't know if that's true. I heard they're like too invasive or something. Where? Someone else had a question here? Yep.
City of Chicago, dojo loaches are prohibited to sell, but in the suburban area, they're fine.
Okay, so if you see someone here selling dojo loaches, call your, no, don't call anybody. Don't call your authorities, we don't need them here.
Some pleco species can be held with goldfish.
Oh yeah, all right, so he's saying some pleco species can be held with goldfish. I'm not the biggest fan of putting plecos in there, just because I think they just poop more. They poop more and they make it, more of a waste-filled environment, but in terms of water parameter requirements, yeah, you can put some plecos in there. Right here for you.
What's the best piece of advice you could have given yourself if you, when you first started your YouTube channel?
All right, the best piece of advice when I first started my YouTube channel, this is a tough one. Let's see. Because most of the advice that I would give is stuff that I just did. I just started going wild, posting as much as I possibly could, posting everything, even if I wasn't sure if it was going to do well. I'd say like the number one piece is not really like actionable advice, is just don't be discouraged when a video flops. Because I remember in the beginning, I would put a lot of work into some videos, and when it flopped, I'd be like, really? Like, really, that video flopped? I put a lot of work into that. I thought it was going to do well. But, over the years, I've realized that's just part of the game. You should be, it should be expected that a video is not going to, immediately go viral every time. But I remember in the beginning, it would be kind of discouraging, especially for those highly edited videos where you get a lot of information and everything, and you're like, oh, it just got like 20 views and just kind of trickled away. But yeah, don't get discouraged. That's the main piece of advice I would give. Here, we got a new question over here. Hello.
You're posting photos, how often do you post them? Every day or once a week?
When I was posting them on Instagram or now?
Instagram.
So back when I was on Instagram alone, I was posting photos about like either every day or twice a day. So I was posting extremely consistently on Instagram, and that's one of the. I'm actually grateful for that time because that time taught me patience. It taught me a lot of patience because I was doing that for 2 years and nothing really took off. So once things did start taking off, and I would I'd be used to that a little bit. All right. I like the shirt. Oh man, how many kids did Mr. Clean have? More than I can count. He had a lot. I bred him for the first time. Back in Chicago. So I bred Giga Chad. We had the mini Chads. I bred Mr. Clean. We had the mini Cleans. And he had a lot of children. I sold most of his children. And I'm pretty sure that Tubby Toby is one of his children. And then Carrot 2.0, not the Carrot you saw in here, a different Carrot. She's gone now, rest in peace, Carrot 2.0. But she was a child of Mr. Clean, and she had a lot of babies as well. So not only does he have children, he has grandchildren as well. And I'm currently raising up a bunch of those grandchildren. I sold a bunch of them recently. But yeah, so his genes are still living on. I got a whole basement full of his grandchildren. Yeah, his line is continuing. All right, we got one back there. I'll hit you next. Here, you got one?
I know you have plans for the greenhouse, but do you have any other future plans, like making a store?
All right, so do I have any future plans, after the greenhouse, making a store for myself? I've considered it and I've thought about it, and I'm not sure, honestly, because I've talked to some people that have brick and mortar shops, and a consistent thing is it is difficult to manage. It is a lot of work to manage. You always have to have staff there. It's a little bit different than your own personal home because you don't have to have it be customer ready 24/7. So already as is, it's very difficult for me to take a vacation. It's very difficult for me to go out of town because I'm constantly worrying about my fish at home because I just have all these fish in tanks. But in the future, if I grew to the point where I could have a brick and mortar shop and I found a couple trusted individuals that could help run it for me so I wouldn't have to always be on site, I would do it then. But I would say, for me, honestly, that's probably a more of a 10-year plan in the future. Nothing in the, nothing close. I think you had a question, right? Yeah.
When are you selling the glass-bellied guppies on your website?
I've been getting asked this one a lot. So when am I going to sell the glass-bellied guppies? I got a tank full of them, and when I first bought them, I bought just 4 of them, and they were breeding great. They were having babies left and right. I got at least 70 or 80 of them, but over the last couple months, they've just kind of toned down on the breeding. I'm not sure if maybe I have to feed them a little more, or they're just taking a break. The temperature's not quite there, but I do want to have another generation come. So I make sure I have a steady, good, stock supply of breeders before I start selling. So unfortunately, it's still, at a minimum 3 months away before any of them start hitting the site. But I got them from fishportals.com. So I'm not sure if she still has any in stock, but you can check her out. She makes lots of awesome fish videos as well. All righty.
You got any plans for the pond you said that's on the property?
The pond? Yeah. So yeah, I do want to see if I can get some legal fish to stock it. I'm not sure about bass or something like that. I do have to watch what I do and make sure it's in line with the Fish and Game code, because I did actually have Fish and Game called on me once for my snapping turtle ownership, but. So I gotta read the codes now before I do stuff like that. So I'll read the codes. If I can keep some bass in there, and that's okay, I might get some bass. Someone was talking to me about putting some sturgeon in there. I don't even know if that's possible for overwinter. That'd be pretty sick though if I could put sturgeon in there. But I would like to stock it with something. I would like to stock it with something potentially that I could eat. It'd be kind of cool to have live off the land a little bit. I want to grow a garden on there too. If I could grow edible fish and grow plants, then it'd be kind of fun, like a little homestead.
Do you regret eating the brine shrimp?
Do I regret eating the brine shrimp? This is a funny question. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, I posted this video a while back of me filling a brine shrimp tray. And I said, as a joke, oh, if this gets 100K likes, I'll eat some. And 2 weeks later, it shot up to 500,000 likes. Everyone's like, we want to see you eat the shrimp. So I was like, oh man, okay, I tied myself in a real problem here. So I ate them, and the funny thing is, when I did it, I was like, you know what? These they don't taste like anything. They don't even taste that bad. I was shocked. I was expecting a shrimpy flavor of some sort. And then the next day I was coughing and I took a COVID test and it turns out I had COVID. So I'm kind of glad I had COVID that time to a degree because I couldn't taste any of the brine shrimp. So when my audience learned that, they're like, well, no, this doesn't count. We wanted you to really get a full taste of it. I said, I abided by my end of the deal here, all right? I never said I would do it COVID free. But then 2 years later, I was like, you know what, let's do this again and let's see what happens. So I said, you know what, if it happens again, this time I'll do it COVID-free guaranteed with a COVID test beforehand to show that, you know, I'm actually not sick. So I did it again easily. That one actually hit like 1 million likes. That one went crazy. They're like, we want to see you do it again. So this time I did the whole COVID nose swab. I recorded it as proof. And this time it tasted nasty. This time it was like if they made an essential oil of the ocean and like aged it, that's what it tasted like. It was not good at all. So I was like, oh my gosh, I was eating this stuff like it was nothing when I had COVID, and now it's like the nastiest stuff. But yeah, would not recommend. High in protein, but would not recommend. Not very good. All right. What's up, man?
How do you feed all the fish?
How do I feed all the fish? So not too difficult. I actually just posted a video about this 2 days ago, right before I left actually. Typically in the morning, especially for my baby fish, I'll go along with some sort of frozen feed. So recently I've been going through a lot of mysis shrimp. I love having the fresh or frozen feed to start the day. So I'll literally just walk over to a tank, I'll pop a couple cubes of mysis shrimp, I'll go to the next one, pop a couple cubes. If it's a block, like a solid block of bloodworms, I'll take it and I'll dip it in one tank till it defrosts and some of the bloodworms fall off. Then I'll take the block out, go to the next, dip, and I just dip all the goldfish tanks till they're all out of there. And depending on what fish are in the tank, if it's an adult goldfish tank that I'm not, aggressively trying to grow, I'll maybe only feed them like once a day. But if it's a baby tank and I'm really trying to grow, put some good growth into the babies, I might feed them. There's sometimes when they're little babies, I'm there 6 times a day, getting more feed, just to constantly supply them with protein. I've just found like for babies that there is no overfeeding for a baby. They'll mow through anything for the little babies.
None of your tanks have substrate. Do you recommend not having substrate because of the bioload?
Yeah. So substrate, that's honestly up to you. The one thing I'd recommend about substrate is be careful of gravel, like gravel that in the size that can fit within the mouth of a goldfish. So I found that sand, if you're going to have a substrate, I think sand is the best one, because if they do happen to swallow it, they can pass it through their gut okay. But I've just found for me, for how many tanks I have and how often I'm doing water changes, it definitely makes it there's a little more maintenance when it comes to substrate, because you got to clean it. And also for the water pumps I use to change my water, I do have a couple tanks with sand. You have to make sure that you have it hover above the sand, or you're going to suck the sand out. But if you have it hover too high, then you're going to suck the heads off your goldfish. So you got to be very careful with the water pump in terms of tanks with substrate like that. Yeah. Do we have any others?
What was your favorite video you've ever posted?
Oh, my favorite video I've ever posted? Oh. You know what's funny? I think the video I had the most fun making was, so back when I used to live here in Chicago, like in the north suburbs, and the way I would sell fish before I started shipping them is I'd meet up locally at my local Walgreens parking lot. I'd meet up and do handoffs. So I'd pull up in the parking lot, I got a bag with methylene blue and a goldfish in it, they'd pull up with their cash, and we do a handoff. So one day I decided, like, you know what, this is kind of funny. This is like a drug deal, like kind of, it looks like a drug deal, but it's with fish. So I decided to make like a skit. There's this one customer that had bought from me 4 other times, and I'm like, hey man, I kind of want to make a skit of doing like a little trade-off, but it's really just a goldfish I'm hiding underneath my coat. So he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So it was funny because he's just some random guy. He never made content before. So I had to re-record his line 8 different times before he said it correctly. And then the video was hilarious. I ended up posting it to all my platforms. And the craziest thing is, Facebook saw the video and they thought I was actually making a skit about trading real drugs, because I was that's what it looked like, but it was a bag full of fish. So they actually they had their AI thing scan it and actually gave me a community strike for that post. I'm like, what do you mean there's a hilarious parody post, but they gave me a community strike for that, which is ridiculous. Facebook is ridiculous when it comes to that. I actually ended up getting like demonetized for a whole year. That was the one that set me over on Facebook. But now it's back. Now I'm just a little more careful sometimes. All right, I think that about wraps it up for questions. Yeah, we're all set. Yeah. Oh, did we have one more? Oh, I'm sorry.
One more thing. How do you exactly tell if a goldfish is male or female?
All right, how do you tell if a goldfish is male or female? If I had some graphics, I'd put them up there. But you're going to have to look very closely at like their vent, and their vent is basically their butt. And if the butt is a little bit skinnier, and it's either like, and if you look on the side profile, if it's flush with the body of the goldfish, or even indents a little bit, that's typically a male. But the female will have a wider, rounder vent, and like more often than not, it'll bubble outward a little bit too. And the females, especially when they're egg laden, you can feel their stomachs, and it's a little more mushy. So like I don't want you guys going and like squeezing all your fish, but like it's the bellies are a little more mushy, and the vent bubbles slightly outward. And like during breeding season, you'll also see across the pectoral fins, the front pectoral fins, for males, they'll get all these little white dots. Some people think it's a disease, but they'll get white dots on the pectoral fins and on the gill plate. They're called breeding stars or breeding tubercles. And then the most surefire way to tell is if they actually do start breeding. Again, don't go squishing your fish, but a minor squeeze on the males on the vent, a minor squeeze on the females of the vent. You should see eggs shoot out for the females and sperm shoot out for the males. So yeah, those are all the ways you can tell. Even I have trouble telling sometimes. If it's an immature fish, it can be very hard to tell sometimes. All right, I think that about wraps it up for today. Thank you guys so much for listening and for coming here. I'm going to hang out here a little bit longer, and then I think I'm going to get some food because I'm getting hungry. But yeah, nice seeing all you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All righty, thank you. I have my wallet, right? Oh, you have my phone. I'm 5'8".
5'8"? That's
Yeah.
what I guessed.
Yeah.